Okay, so I'd now like to introduce Lucy Commander, who's Project Manager for Flora Bank Guidelines, and also other activities that are being carried out by the Australian Network for Plant Conservation. So thank you very much, Lucy.
Oh, thanks very much, Tane, for that introduction. Can you see my screen there?
We can. You're sharing well.
Fantastic. It's good. Well, thanks. Yes, I'm a project manager at the Australian Network for Plant Conservation, ANPC. I'm sorry I couldn't join you in person today. I'm speaking from Perth on Wajak Noongar Budja. So thanks very much for inviting me to speak on behalf of ANPC. I'm actually really excited about the UN Decade of Restoration. It's really good to see something that many of us have been working on for so many years achieve global recognition and attention. So today I'd like to share some of the work that the ANPC has been doing to show how we can collaborate with you to contribute to the goals of the UN Decade. So the ANPC's mission aligns really well with the UN Decade's vision. They're both aiming for healthy ecosystems, and importantly, they've both got a message of action and hope. So ANPC's mission is to promote and develop plant conservation, and it's a national network linking people, research, and action. Also, the ANPC objectives align well with the goals of the UN Decade, in particular, encouraging participation and action, as well as increasing our understanding by filling information gaps and sharing knowledge and supporting education through guidelines and training. So how can the ANPC contribute to the UN Decade goals? Well, firstly, through synthesis of knowledge and research through our bulletins, such as APC, Australasian Plant Conservation, which is our quarterly bulletin, as well as best practice guidelines. Two-way knowledge sharing can be done through our conferences and workshops, and we've got several coming up. We've also got a large number of partnerships with other organisations, so that helps us facilitate dialogue across other sectors. Our e-newsletter and social media can help build the awareness of the UN Decade, as well as plant conservation and restoration more generally. Through our publications, such as the Native Seed Survey report published last year and the Healthy Seeds Roadmap for New South Wales, which is currently being written, we can make recommendations for policy, and this will also hopefully lead to improved funding, particularly for seed management. Now, ANPC involves lots of people from many organisations. It was founded in 1991 and has a management committee who come from state government departments, consulting, CSIRO, universities and industry. We've got 5 staff living in 4 states and also a number of corporate members and project collaborators, as well as partnerships with funding bodies. So please get in touch if you'd like to be on the committee or you'd like to collaborate on a project. Our publications too help facilitate knowledge sharing. So as I mentioned, we've got this quarterly bulletin, Australasian Plant Conservation. It's free to publish in and anyone can submit an article. We also publish best practice guidelines such as the Germplasm and translocation guidelines, and we're also updating the Flora Bank guidelines, and I spoke on them earlier today. Our native seed sector report highlights issues within the seed sector, and we've got a lot of free online resources as well on the website. So if you're interested in plant responses to fire and other things like that, please check them out. Events are another way that we share knowledge and encourage collaboration. We've got an online symposium on orchid conservation coming up, a FENA conference on exceptional plants, hands-on seed workshops, our biennial conference, and also workshops coming up on threatened plants. Now, our projects are focused on various aspects of plant conservation, and you can see from this illustration here that in situ and ex situ conservation are complementary actions to restoration. We generally receive short-term funding for our projects, so they can run for around 2 years or so, and each project might be managed by an ANPC project manager or by a partner organisation. So now I'm going to talk a bit about some of our current and recent projects. In particular, translocation, healthy seeds, ex situ conservation, fire and orchids. ANPC has been working to help improve translocation practices. This project that we had was part of the Threatened Species Recovery Hub, and we updated the translocation guidelines along with 30 authors around the country, and you can download these for free. We presented 4 workshops on translocation, published case studies, And we're also hosting the Australian Plant Translocation Database that was developed by Jen Silcock and others at the Threatened Species Recovery Hub. Currently, Chantel Doyle's working on the Plants Going Places project, and she's producing these really neat video site tours. And these are showcasing the stories of translocation practitioners. So check out her website for maybe, I think the first 1 or 2 are already up. We're also planning some translocation workshops in Victoria next year. Now, we've got a few projects focused on native seed. I've mentioned the seed survey already, and you might have heard Paul speak about it as well. You can download these from our website. The Healthy Seeds project, which is being headed up by Martin Driver, has a consortium of 8 organisations, including ANPC. We're producing the 2nd edition of the Flora Bank Guidelines and also a roadmap for improved seed collection, supply and quantity in New South Wales. And we're also contributing to Project Phoenix, both as part of the steering committee and also contributing to report writing as well. Amelia Martin Jensen is heading up the 3rd edition of the ANPC publication Plant Germplasm Conservation in Australia. So there are 9 organisations represented on the steering committee, and the project's funded by the Ian Potter Foundation. It's going to be launched at the Australasian Seed Science Conference in September. She's also doing some video content and also lots of case studies as well about ex situ conservation in action and how it can support on-ground action as well. Through funding from San Diego Zoo Global, ANPC is working on a project to prevent rare plant extinctions, specifically looking at rare plants affected by the recent fires. ANPC is also working with Royal Botanic Gardens Victoria on their Orchid conservation project. There's been a number of projects focused on species like spider orchid and sun orchid, and these projects have involved lots of partners, and they've done both in situ and ex situ conservation. And coming up soon, we're going to be having an online orchid conservation symposium. And there will be some really cool talks about how orchids have been affected by the recent bushfires, as well as other conservation issues. And we're going to have Australian and international speakers as well. Now, ANPC is always keen to collaborate with individuals and organisations, and there's a number of ways that you can collaborate with us. So firstly, you can submit an article to APC, as I said, and we also welcome ideas for special issues as well. We often call for authors when we write or update our best practice guidelines, and we're also keen to collaborate on writing new guidelines as well. We can participate in steering committees for projects that are run through other organisations. We can also co-host workshops and training courses, as well as collaborate on projects. Feel free to send through any good news stories that you've got, and we can share these through our e-news and social media. And also get in touch if you're interested in collaborating with us on our national conference. Thanks everyone. Here's my email address and the ANPC website. Please check out the resources on our website and follow us on social media. I'm happy to take any questions now or later. I'd really encourage you to share our resources with your colleagues and project partners, and it'd be great to hear with anyone who'd like to collaborate with us. The UN Decade of Restoration presents us with this once in a lifetime opportunity to raise the profile of restoration and create action for a lasting legacy. I hope that we can all work together to restore Australia. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Lucy. You have got time for questions, and in fact, you finished a little ahead of time. So if the audience could direct questions to Lucy, but also consider James and Keith, that would be also great. So if they're still online and want to respond to a particular question, this might be a good opportunity. Any questions either virtually or in the room, please? So you're no slouches, ANPC. You're actually extremely active.
We have one at the back.
You're also extremely accustomed to working with other groups because you're in fact a network. Could you explain perhaps or mention what tips Sarah could perhaps follow for networking with other organisations?
Oh, Teen, I've been on the Sarah board. I probably have great respect for SERA, and I'm not sure that I can give SERA any tips whatsoever.
I bet you ANPC can.
So ANPC's just been around, I guess, for a bit longer, since 1991. So I really can't, I'm not qualified to give any tips whatsoever.
Okay.
All I can say is that I think that having Jo as the business manager has been really good. I mean, the thing is that our projects are often only for a year or so, or 2 years. And so, you know, we have different project managers working on small projects, but having somebody who is consistent and kind of links everything together. Also, when we have a turnover on the committee as well. So we had Linda Broadhurst was the president when I first started working for ANPC, and now Tony Old is the president. So because we've had sort of, you know, we have these amazing people who lead the organisation, but because there's this staff changeover and committee changeover, having a constant person there to kind of drive things is really helpful.
That's really good.
And also to be able to get funding as well, because, you know, all these guidelines are fantastic, but, you know, like with the Flora Bank guidelines, it just took so long to get the funding, and it's about having, I guess, dedicated people making time to invest in, you know, looking for funding. And certainly not all of our funding applications get through. There's a lot that we've put in that haven't come up. So,
That's exactly right. And I think part of Sarah's raison d'etre is that we do seek to collaborate with other organisations, as does ANPC. But we fully, well, one of the reasons we are doing that is because we know that there are already so many active restoration organisations in Australia with their own specialisations. And so Sarah doesn't want to duplicate any of those roles or compete with any of the other organisations. We each have our role to play. And I think Sarah sees ourselves as an organisation that can help create a bit of glue between us and to help optimise synergies. But other organisations perhaps may not have that aspiration, even though it is potentially a very valuable aspiration. And often, you know, they're hell-bent on surviving and growing to meet their core goals. So collaboration is not necessarily an aspiration of all restoration-oriented organisations, but we would certainly advocate that it becomes more a more prominent aspiration.
I think that's right.
We do have a question at the back.
Okay, one question at the back, and then I think our time might be up.
Look, it's really just I suppose a concern. I was thinking about what Ian was saying about, you know, markets and offsets, and you know, where we can you know, generate money for restoration through that, you know, these markets. But you know, the thing that concerns me, I suppose, is that if it's based on offsets, it means we're still actually destroying something. So, you know, how do we, when we don't want to do restoration on a large scale, do we have to actually make a pact with the devil who's destroying the place to then get money to do restoration? It just seems to be you know, it's a real conundrum, I think. Just wondering if Ian had some thoughts about that, about using those market-based kind of incentives, I suppose, that are basically, they're offsetting something that's, we're either putting more carbon in the atmosphere or we're destroying something in order to get the money to try and restore something, which seems a bit crazy to me.
Good question. And I don't know that Ian is with us because he had a board meeting that was unavoidable today and he's chairing. So I don't think Ian's with us. And I think we may have to take that question on notice because it's a complex one, because incentives are many and various. They don't all depend upon offsets, but where they do, there is legitimate question about the validity of the models, and alternative models are being considered at all times. So it's a very much a live debate.